Hello, I am Cadet Wood, Detachment 538's Public Affairs Officer. This is Det 538's third podcast of the semester. On Friday, October 28th, Detachment 538 had the privilege of having a luncheon along with a Q&A session with Brigadier General Cantwell and Chief Master Sergeant Alexander. Brigadier General Houston Cantwell is the commander of the Gene M. Holmes Center for Officer Accessions and Citizen Development at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. The Holmes Center includes 15,000 AFROTC cadets and 3,500 annual OTS cadets. Brigadier General Cantwell was commissioned in 1994 as a distinguished graduate of the University of Virginia Air Force ROTC program. He has commanded at multiple levels, including 2 combat units, first as commander of the 455th Expeditionary Operations Support Squadron at Bagram Air Base, Afghanistan, and later was the initial commander of the 732nd Operations Group at Creech Air Force Base, Nevada. In addition, he served as the wing commander of the 49th Wing at Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico. He has performed staff duties at the Pentagon, Headquarters U.S. Air Forces in Europe, and U.S. Forces in Japan. Most recently, he served as the commander of the NATO Alliance Ground Surveillance Force. Additionally, he is a command pilot with more than 2,100 flying hours, including more than 400 combat hours, primarily in the F-16 Fighting Falcon and the MQ-9 Reaper. Chief Master Sergeant Gilda M. Alexander is the Command Chief Master Sergeant for the Gene M. Holmes Center for Officer Accession and Citizen Development, Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. Chief Alexander serves as the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Holmes Center Commander for issues relating to the professional development, education, health, morale, and welfare of more than 3,300 airmen. During their visit, Detachment 538 received the Department of Defense Reserve Officers Training Corps Partnership Excellence Award. This award recognizes the detachment and university and their strong partnership that has enhanced the quality of training the next generation of military leaders have received. Here's the Q&A with General Cantwell and Chief Alexander.
Okay, with that, Chief, over to you.
So in order for me to answer that question, just want to tell you guys about who I am and where I came from. So I was born in Ecuador, South America, and I always growing up, always liked to see, the TV, the uniform. I thought it'd be, they look sharp, kind of like a different type of family. But growing up in Ecuador, that's not what a female is supposed to do. So my family moved to New York, and I went to high school in New York, actually New York City. And I started seeing again the uniforms, and I was like, okay, I think this is, I can do this. I tried college for a little bit, but I always kept the military in the back of my mind. And one of my friends went and talk to a Marine recruiter, and I went with her, and I was listening to the Air Force recruiter talking to somebody else, and I'm like, okay, just comparing the Marines and Air Force. I was like, I think Air Force. I said, because that I can feel that. I'm like, he's being honest, not trying to BS the individual. So I went and talked to the Air Force recruiter, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this, but I have some conditions that I wanted to come in doing a specific job. So I waited a little bit, and I enlisted originally for 4 years. I'm like, just to see how it is, and then, but I saw it gave me a sense of fulfillment that for me to give something back to a country provided so many opportunities to my family and I. And now, it's my family. The Air Force is my family. I still love what I do. It's something that I'm part of something bigger that I never thought I would be part of. And I'm still having fun. I love the opportunity to come and talk to you guys. This is kind of like the highlight for my position when the boss and I kind of go out and visit the detachment. So, but yes, that's why I decided to join. But I'm still here, and I'm still loving it.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to start with, for your position being oversight for such a large organization, what advice do you have in general about leading others? And for this one, I'm going to go back to one of my principles. Chief, I wish we had the whole audio system going on. Chiefs see me do this,
yes.
like this whole soundtrack along with leadership principles. So the soundtrack I would play right now is a song by Michael Jackson. It's called Man in the Mirror. You guys ever heard of that? Yeah? Okay. Awesome.
He made a comeback, sir.
He made a comeback, yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, so Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. Imagine that's playing in the background right now, because I didn't learn this principle until I was a major. So I've been in the Air Force for 12 years at the time, and then a fellow major gave me this idea that I had never thought of. Because I grew up as a fighter pilot, we just went over that. One of the pieces of being a fighter pilot is that you have to have an extremely large ego. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a large ego, but when you're flying a single-seat fighter, like over the skies of Afghanistan, right, by yourself, I mean, you have to have some level of confidence in yourself. Because, look, your life depends on it, other people's lives depend on it, and there's a lot going on, a lot of information being thrown at you, and you have to be able to handle it with sometimes split-second reactions. Okay, so I'm not saying having a big ego is necessarily a horrible thing. You just got to compartmentalize it at times. And so one of the compartmentalizing factors is
man in the mirrors.
Thank you.
I don't know why the cadets didn't figure this out.
So you got to have that ego compartmentalized, because here's why. There's going to come times when things are going to go not the way you want them to. You're in charge of this large organization, maybe a general, maybe a captain, and someone subordinate to you is going to tell you stuff ain't happening the right way. It can be tempting to blame others. You guys ever had that? I mean, you guys do group activities around here, right? It wasn't my fault, right? That things went wrong, right? It was their fault. That guy's an idiot, right? I mean, what the heck was he thinking, right? Overslept, or, can't do the job, whatever. It's a lot easier to point the finger. But what am I getting at? Turn the mirror towards yourself. You hear me? Because there might be something that you, as the leader, could have done to make your team more effective. For whatever reason, it took me 12 years to learn that very basic lesson. I'm trying to teach that to you guys right now because I think it'll go a long way as you try to lead others and in terms of being successful. I think that's a key thing, is be reflective. Hold that mirror up to yourself before you start criticizing others, and you're going to be much more successful. All right? Awesome. Chief.
Sir. Okay, my next one is, has the training between schools that you have attended ever been contradictory, and how we dissolve that? Not necessarily. This is, I think, I've been in the seat about 15 months, so I think this is my detachment number 22, I think, to visit. Not so much that they're contradictory to each other, but I will tell you the resources. It's a big difference. It's a huge difference, and I think we as an enterprise, we're not doing what we can to provide the same opportunities to all the cadets across all the detachments. Because the budget for the detachments that we provide, the Air Force provide, is the same. But some of the detachments have more opportunities for development for you guys because of the resources that the school can provide. So I will tell you that's kind of one of the things that unfortunately we can't resolve at our level, but that's something that I wish we as an enterprise can do better to make sure we provide all opportunities for you guys the same regardless of what detachment you're assigned to.
Next, what type of assignments are recommended for a career progression like yours? I'm going to talk in generalities here. And after this one, I'm going to ask anyone if they got other questions that might be on their minds. Okay, so if you got anything that you're stewing, you really want to ask, then after the chief goes, then I'm going to start asking. But if no one has any questions, then I'll just keep going back to the chief because you guys get plenty of questions. Anyway, so career like mine. What I'll sum that up with is be as close to the pointy end of the spear as possible. And what do I mean by that? The pointy end of the spear. Like in my example I provided earlier, I talked about the teamwork. I was part of the team. I was the one pushing the button that released the bomb that killed the bad guy. Okay? That's about as close as you can get, unless you're like any special operators that want to go actually take the knife and knife the terrorist personally. That's a little too close for comfort for me, okay? I'll back up a little bit and push the button, all right? But do you want to be the one that pushes the button or, surges with the knife? I don't know. But I'm telling you, the closer you are to the employment of air or space power, the more career opportunities you're going to have when it comes to the planning of campaigns, the programming, the resourcing. Again, not to say that the support Air Force specialty codes are any less relevant. They're absolutely essential. We already covered how essential they are to getting the effects for the Air and Space Forces. But when it comes to career options, we need people that understand the employment of kinetic and non-kinetic effects on behalf of our nation. And in our U.S. Air Force, those are relatively small numbers. We've got 330,000 airmen in the U.S. Air Force. And the ones who are responsible for the direct effects for air and space power application, they're pretty small numbers. Generally, they're in airplanes or they're running space satellites. Sometimes they'll be like an RPA pilot, right? RPA pilots are doing tremendous work from 10,000 miles away from battle space. They can be cyber operators. You have intel officers who are providing very important analysis on what the next move should be by us or other coalition forces. You have air battle managers who are orchestrating how air power should be employed. Tremendous. You have crew members, whether it's a pilot or a navigator or a CISO. These are all folks that are on, again, the pointy end of the spear, trying to make sure that those effects get done as accurately and timely as possible. Okay. And hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of understanding of where you want to fit into the overall team we call the Air Force or Space Force. Awesome. Chief.
Sure. The next one, what it is like leading an organization as large as the home center on the enlisted side. I will tell you, I've been honored and blessed because actually I was at the Air Force Academy for 4 years. A few years ago, I was doing a special duty, actually working directly with cadets. So now coming and seeing this side of the perspective, seeing the whole accession program across the Air Force is a unique opportunity. But here, particularly at the Home Center, at the beginning, there is a little challenging because there is the footprint for enlisted across the enterprise is a little small. But I will tell you, at least for me, when I go out and visit the detachment, my message to you is to take advantage all the NCOs that you have in your detachment. Meaning, at the end of the day, when you guys put a uniform and you get the bar, some of you are going to have not a lot of interactions with NCOs and airmen, because especially if you're going to be a pilot. But a lot of you are going to be, especially if you're going to support our security forces, PA, some of those other career fields. The day that you show up to your base, most likely you're going to be in charge of a flight. It could be 100 airmen, it could be 40 airmen. So take advantage of the opportunity that you have NCOs in your detachment to ask those questions. What it is to lead an NCO, what it is to work with an NCO. If I have this situation, how can I, how do I handle? You guys have right next to you 2 great NCOs, I don't see the other one, to kind of guide you and prepare you, because right now where you are, this is your leadership laboratory. This is your opportunity to make those mistakes. Because when you start wearing that uniform as active duty, I will tell you, we're not gonna give you a break because you're a brand new lieutenant. The expectations that we have for you as a brand new lieutenant are gonna be up here. So we're gonna look up to you. So take advantage of the opportunity you have now to prepare you when you become an active duty Air Force officer.
Are there any questions floating around in the group you guys want to ask? Yeah.
Sir, I'm Cadet Morsh, AS300. Sir, as the threats are changing and as the national security strategy changes and with the emergence of the great power competition, how is the content of Air Force ROTC and OTS going to change to reflect that?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I will say it was great to sit in the class this morning about China. So as I mentioned earlier in the awards presentation, the National Defense Strategy, President Biden's defense strategy just came out this week. And there were not any major, as you would expect, no major changes. I would expect that we'll continue to infuse cultural awareness in terms of, look, I don't care what wars you look back on. If we did poorly in a war, it's because we didn't understand what the enemy was. We didn't understand the culture. We didn't understand their decision-making calculus. So the more we can understand where China's coming from and where China's trying to go, the better we can predict what actions they might take. So we want to make sure we instill some cultural awareness for you all on East Asia, okay, as well as Russia. I mean, we are learning so much right now from Russia's actions in Ukraine. I mean, this is an unbelievable opportunity for us. Absolutely horrible opportunity for the Ukrainians. I mean, God bless them for giving up so many lives to defend their freedom. But we're taking some very careful notes on every action Russia's taking because, look, they're not changing their playbook, right, if they go invade Finland or something. It's the same kind of stuff. So we're learning a lot. One thing I will say on the future for the 21st century, the one area that I give the U.S. Air Force slightly below average marks is our move to non-kinetic and cyber operations. I mean, in my career, right, when I was telling some of you folks earlier, in my career, we had computer labs when I was in college. I was an engineering student, right, so I should have had computers like all over the place. You know, we had a centralized computer lab, and if you needed to go to a problem set, you went to the computer lab, and that's where the computers were. So right now, I mean, everyone has like 8 computers, right? You guys all have so many computers, it's crazy. And then in that time, right, we didn't have email when I was in college. How crazy is that? Did not even have email. And so this whole information age thing came across during my career. Well, that fundamentally changes warfare, I believe, in terms of information operations, cyber, non-kinetic ops. But the U.S. military has kind of stayed the course, right? I mean, we are continuing to march, you know, the same beat we've done for centuries. And I don't think it's because we've got bad leaders. I don't believe that at all. But I believe that many of our senior leaders, their minds and the way they process information and the way they balance and measure risk was done through a lens that they grew up in the way we grew up. I flew fighter jets growing up, okay? So I look at the world through how a fighter jet person does. And in the Army, you got armor folks and artillery, and they think about warfare in that way. And so for them to fundamentally change, it just doesn't make sense. You can't do that. It's not natural for humans to do that, especially when we've put so much time and effort into our careers. And so what I'd like to see is you folks, right, growing up in a different environment and hopefully more comfortable and more cyber savvy, more information operations savvy, trying to move that needle. Because we need you folks to lead some of these conversations to go, hey, General, respectfully, you're out to lunch. Like, we need to invest in these other operations to be more relevant in the 21st century. How's that?
Thanks, sir.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Chief.
Let's see. So one of the questions is, what is my favorite base? I don't have a favorite base. I have a couple of jobs that I did in USAFA was one, kind of like up there. And another one is actually at Cannon Air Force Base. Some of you heard Cannon Air Force Base is in New Mexico. Don't shake your head. But for me, it was one of my top 2 assignments. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not so much the location. The location is what you make out of it. It's about the mission, the people inside the base. And yes, this particular base, it is in the middle of nowhere. But the mission, no matter what your job is, support, maintainer, pilot, you are part of that mission. So that would be my advice to you. No matter what you go, yes, the Air Force may tell you, or the Space Force may tell you, yeah, you have to go, yeah, but it's temporary. In the Air Force, in the military, everything is temporary. So whatever, it's up to you what you make out of it. So don't let a location kind of dictate the future of your career. Go there, do your best, and move on to your next chapter.
Yeah, you won't be there forever. That's for sure.
No, I was there for 2 years, so that was it.
Awesome. Any questions? Okay. I will go back to a lesson learned. So I'm going to hit on a topic called intellectual curiosity. How many folks here are just naturally curious about, I don't know, things, life, what goes on in the world? You got some? You got some? Okay. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. because that was not this guy. Okay, I wasn't curious about anything unless it dealt with flying a fighter jet for the United States military. Sounds sad, but it's 100% true. Okay, I knew from the time I was 8 years old that all I wanted to do in my life was be a fighter pilot. I don't know why I felt that. It seemed like it matched up with being an athlete. I always played sports when I was younger. I liked hanging out with my friends. So go fly planes, don't have to sit in an office, go see the world. Oh my gosh, I get paid for that? That would be awesome. So I had it all planned out in my life. I was going to go do that. All I had to do was get into the Air Force and go to pilot training, and the rest would be history. Well, the problem was my mom was a high school teacher. And so my mom did not see the world the same way that I did, because she believed that education was important and reading books was important, and these things that really didn't matter in my life were important, okay? And so she would tell me all the time when I was growing up, Houston, for God's sake, would you just pick up a book and read it? And like a badge of honor, I would walk around and go, I have never read a book in my life unless a teacher made me read it for class. I mean, that was me. Okay? In fact, I got so smart, I outsmarted my mom, I believe. Because at one point, when I was in high school, she was like, Houston, how many times do I have to remind you, just pick up a book? I'm like, Mom, don't you remember what my lifelong dream is? My lifelong dream is to be a fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force. Now, go back in time, in the 90s, we didn't have this PRK basic stuff. Like, if your eyes were bad, dude, you're out. So Mom, if I read all these books, my vision goes bad. If my vision goes bad, you have just crushed my dream. I was overwhelmingly successful. I don't think she ever told me to read a book again after that. And she could not defeat this logic. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I was very proud of myself that I outsmarted my mom. So you guys know the story. I go to college, go to ROTC, become a fighter pilot. Things are going pretty well for young Cantwell. All right, go to pilot training, F-16s, go to combat, and I'm pretty much somebody at this point, right? I've done everything that I wanted to in life at age 30. Things are good. Until I get sent to get a master's degree at George Washington University. And I get sent there with 49 other, I'll call them highly capable captains that were competitively selected to go to this course. And I'll never forget sitting in the classroom, about the size, and I'm sitting on the side of the room, and there's some professor at the front leading a topic on ethics. And I'm sitting there going, wow, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. The next day we'll be talking about national security. I'm going, whoa, I am out of my league. So I had a reflection at that point. I go, I used to be a pretty smart kid. I did well in school. I was an engineer, undergraduate, got good grades. How did I become the absolute dumbest person in the room? So I reflected on that and I go, I think my mom might have been onto something. Maybe I should have expanded my mind every now and then, because obviously that's what this group of 49 other people did when I was just off goofing around and not being intellectually curious about what's going on around me. So if I could share one life lesson with you all, it's, look, you're going to be faced with challenges down the road. Right? The more well-read you are, and the more, you don't have to read anymore, you just do podcasts and everything you do. The more you do those things, you will expand your mind, you will prepare yourself to handle challenges that you may have never even thought about. That I was so narrow-minded when I was your age that I thought I had it all licked. And I did, as long as I was pulling 9Gs and flying a fighter jet. But you can see how much that is relevant to my life at this point. Absolutely no relevance whatsoever. So get out there and read the book. To add insult to injury, when I started reading books when I was 30, I'll never forget the easy ones to read, right? Besides the picture books, which I used to buy because all these planes, like the pictures were awesome. I read biographies. Because biographies are like stories, And like more than half of successful businessmen, politicians, military leaders, pretty much in the first opening chapter, somewhere in there, it would say, I believe I owe my success to my voracious reading habits as a child. I'm like, oh my God. I got ways to go. So I still struggle with intellectual curiosity, but I do pick up a book at least every now and then to prepare myself for whatever challenges may come ahead. Chief can laugh at me all the time. It's awesome. Chief, over to you.
So how is managing new airmen different as opposed to new officers? Totally different. Totally different. Brand new airmen, we as an enlisted, we are your tactical expertise, right? Officers, totally different. You guys are not going to be doing the tactical stuff. It is good for you to have an overall idea of what's going on, because at the end of the day, if we do something that we shouldn't be doing and we messed up that F-16, it's not going to be the maintainer going in front of the commander. It's going to be whoever is that flight OIC that is going to be, so it's totally different. For enlisted, we're more kind of like behind the scenes, and you guys are the one that is going to go to all the meetings. I always say officers are kind of like the face of the Air Force, in the Department of the Air Force. And the enlisted are more the behind the scenes, kind of like the backup singers, and you guys will be the lead singers. So you have to make sure that you bring all that information, all that knowledge, and share it with your backup singers, because at the end of the day, lead singer, they always want to have a good backup singers, and because you know that the backup singer is the one that's going to be doing the work. So, one thing that I want to ask you is that whenever you do have that, you get put in those situations where you have to make a decision, please bring in your backup singers into that conversation. Please do so, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that they're going to be doing the work. And yes, you're going to make the decision. I'm not telling you to listen to your enlisted members and do what they tell you to do, but bring them part of that discussion. Make them part of that process, because that's how you're going to gain their respect and you're going to gain credibility. I have seen some commanders before that they just, go and make decisions on the spot, and then when they go back to take that, that order for the members to take care of it, a lot of the times, the technicians tell them, well, sir, man, we're not going to be able to do that. But why not? Because of this. And then that commander has to go back to their bosses to let them know that we're not going to be able to do it. When from the beginning, if that commander would have brought in their, the enlisted members to be part of that discussion, that could have, saved some time and some confusion between that commander and the bosses. So it is totally different, going back to the question, so we can't compare them. Enlisted is enlisted, and officers is officers, but at the end of the day, we are a team.
Good point, Chief, thank you. I'll close with what has a good leader taught me? And the lesson I'm going to share with you is from a former Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General Welsh. And when I was a Lieutenant Colonel, I got to have a mentoring session with General Welsh, and he was the chief. And he brought about 20, 25 of us in the room, and he gave us a bunch of leadership lessons. And honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of what he said, because, right, you guys won't remember a whole lot of what's said here, except you have it, I guess, electronically. But he closed the conversation with one thing very simple. And he said, all right, he said, hey, Lieutenant Colonels, you folks are going to go off, be commanders, group commanders, wing commanders. You're going to be leading our airmen for years and years to come. I got one thing I need you to do. We're all sitting there going, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force is giving us one thing to do. Chief, what do you need us to do? Just tell us. You know, one thing, and that thing is this. So when you're out there leading your airmen, make sure they know you care. And I was like, seriously? Like, there's a problem with this in our Air Force? Like, why is the Chief of Staff of the Air Force telling us this? Why does he feel the need to do that? Anybody know? Because airmen out there don't think that their leadership gives a crap. That's the bottom line. And I was like, that's just surprising to me. You know, I never thought about that. But I'll tell you, I am a above average empathetic kind of person. And when I became a group commander, so I was a colonel in charge of a lot of drone operations around the world. I'll never forget, 24/7 operations, a lot going on, we're killing terrorists, we're collecting ISR. It was busy. And 2 months into my tenure as a group commander, I'll never forget, I had this thought. I was like, 2 months into this job, we're in the battle with them, things are going pretty well. So the squadron commanders report to me. I don't think I have taken 60 seconds to ask a squadron commander how they're doing. How sad is that? That's pretty sad. I share that with you guys because, look, I don't think I'm a bad person, right? I feel like I can connect. But I just got so wrapped up in everything going on with operations that I just got caught up in what's going on. And I don't know what you're going to do as leaders to make sure your people know you care. We all got our own personalities, we all got our own way of doing things. But just make sure you find someone to make sure that your subordinates know that you care, because that's going to go a really long way. And as you reflect on that to become a better leader, think about, look, you guys have been in teams, you've played sports, you've been in whatever kinds of events. Think about who you believe has been effective or not effective as leaders. Just, keep that inventory. And keep, whether it's you actually keep something written down or whether you just keep it in the back of your head, keep that record of how you think you can learn from these leaders and apply that in your journey as you try to continue to become more effective as a leader. Because leadership is a journey. That's the last thing I can leave with. Leadership is a journey. Once you get promoted to be a general, it's not like, I've arrived, I'm now the leader that I wanted to become. No, that's not the way it works. Because stuff's always changing. You get put in new situations, new subordinates, you're always changing, right? And so you gotta be cognizant of that to make sure you're still connecting with your subordinates in the way you want to be an effective leader. And I wish you all the best as you continue down this journey. With that, I think we're out of time.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank General Cantwell and Chief Alexander for coming all the way out to Rochester to present this prestigious award, as well as taking the time to appear on our podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to contact me by email at rjw1032@rit.edu.